Music icon Belinda Carlisle is coming to the Northshore Center for the Performing Arts this Sunday. We're getting ready to hear the hits, plus some new music from her first English language album in 25 years. And we can thank her son, Duke, for making this happen. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, I'm thrilled.
So did you expect the story to go as viral as it did, as far as you running into Diane Warren in a coffee shop and then magic happened?
Well, what's funny is I had, as I would hope any supportive child would, I've been pushing my mom for years to do more pop material. And, even though she listens to everything I say, and even though we have a great relationship, I will say there definitely was, she'd be like, every time I would talk about it, she'd be like, oh, I'm old, or, I'm over it. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I think in a weird way, it kind of was meant to be, because I think the only person who probably could have convinced my mother to do new material was Diane Warren, because, they'd worked together years before, but, I just think my mother was kind of like ready to retire and ready to at least stop recording new material. So, when I saw Diane at the coffee shop just up the street here on Sunset Boulevard, I had no idea that it would turn into this big, not only that it would turn into this project, but that my role in it and this chance encounter would turn into sort of a, I mean, not legendary, but sort of it's part of the whole story now. So no, I had no idea that one very random encounter and my decision to go up to her would turn to this new chapter in my mother's career.
So set the scene. You open the door, you go get some coffee. Had you met her before, or were you like, let me just go introduce myself? I know you know my mom. How did it go?
Basically, I knew who she was, and I'd seen her at an event before, I think in LA, like a animal rights benefit. And but the weirdest part is I'd been to the Coffee Bean before this location, but it's not the one that I go to very often at all. And I was there at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I usually am not up at a Coffee Bean at 8 o'clock in the morning. But for whatever reason, I think I happened to be with a friend who had like a doctor's appointment, and he dropped me off there on the way. And I was sitting there and I was having coffee. I looked over, I saw Diane Warren, and I said, wait, I think that's Diane Warren. And I knew she was. I knew she worked with my mom 30 years prior. And I went up to her and she was reading the paper. And I said, are you Diane? And I could tell when she looked up, she was like, almost like with her glasses, I could tell she was like, oh no, like, what is this going to be? I'm sure she gets approached all the time. And I said, she was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm Belinda Carlisle's son. She was like, no fucking way. And no, I don't think she knew that she had a kid, that my mom had a kid, or that I don't think it even had remotely crossed her mind. And immediately she was like, call your mom, FaceTime your mom. So I FaceTime my mom, and my mom happened to pick up, which, by the way, she's not very good at picking up her phone, but that's just because she doesn't have her ringer on usually. But she happened to pick up at that moment. And I'm like, look, and I literally turned the phone camera and it was Diane. She was like, I think my mom was like, whoa, like, what? She's like, where are you guys? Like, what's going on? And so I think my mom was due to be in LA a few weeks later. My mom came into town. She met up with Diane. Diane played her these new songs, and it turned into this new project. So no, I mean, of course, like I said, I always wanted to, have my mom do new music, but I kind of gave up on it a little bit. I was like, look, I respect the fact that she's, at a different point in her life. She doesn't want to record new material and be on not the rat wheel, or whatever I'm talking, whatever the expression is, the hamster wheel, whatever.
Hamster wheel, yeah.
Yeah. And, but I think she realized that, she loved Diane already from when they worked together before. And I think she realized how great the material was.
And of course, recording one of her biggest songs, I Get Weak, from Heaven on Earth, which is still one of my favorites and gets played all the time. And I think like you said, I think maybe no one else could have convinced her other than Diane, and you made that moment happen.
Yeah, in a weird way, I've learned with my mom, she's not going to do anything she doesn't want to do. And so, so I realized inadvertently, because I didn't intend to do it. I didn't know, like, by connecting with Diane Warren, but I guess I somehow maybe instinctively or intuitively knew that the only way that I might be able to get her to do it is by doing it like sort of in by going by another way, another channel, because like I said, she knows what she wants. And I've learned, like, even though I would love for her to be out there on the road constantly, or doing press and all that kind of stuff, she's never been driven by ego or trying to like be relevant or whatever. She just she's true to who she is, and I respect that. But I think that's the thing, this new material, yes, it's commercial, yes, it's yes, it's Diane Warren, but it's also just great, high, top-notch material, which is what I think it was really about for her.
I do want to talk about your mom as a gay icon, especially, throughout the years, because I think, especially for so many LGBTQ plus youth, you find an artist that you really love, and then you hear them supporting the community, you hear them talking about their friends, you see them at Pride events, and it just makes your love for them grow even bigger, that they have your support, because a lot of times it can be lonely before you come out, or maybe it's someone that you listen to at certain times. What have you seen maybe firsthand, as far as like whether she's been at a Pride event or when you two have been out to dinner, as far as seeing the impact that she's had by her visibility?
It's weird. Before I even came out myself, or even really knew I was gay, I was very aware of the fact that she had a big gay following. And I mean, whenever I would go to shows with her when I was a kid, pretty much the only people in the audience were either, I would say, women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and gay men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so, and some of her best, in fact, most of, I would say, of her best friends when I was growing up. I mean, one of the first people I had in my life was a guy named I called him Uncle Jack Pinson, who had his own radio show or talk show back in the day. He was an openly gay guy. So, I mean, I was always very aware of that. But I always wonder, it's weird, until a certain age, it's like probably 13, like right before I came out, I never really associated it with me, which is odd. But I mean, growing up, she would show me, like, literally when I was like 12, she showed me like John Waters movies, and she showed me like the old Batman, with Adam West and Julie Newmar and stuff, which was super campy. And so I don't know, it's this, I've always, it's the same thing of, you wonder about all these gay, gay icons, whether it be Cher or Sally Field or all sorts of people who happen to have gay children. And I just think it's so interesting that, I don't know about them, but I know, at least for me, like, I never necessarily put two and two together. But of course, even when I was a kid, I saw what a big gay following she had. And of course, when I did finally come out and sort of experience life on my own in the gay community, for sure, it definitely is something that I'm grateful for, that she's been such an ally. And it's definitely made for some interesting conversations, for sure. I mean, since Black Mirror, I would say, which was, they had Heaven is a Place on Earth in an episode of Black Mirror, which was super popular like 5-6 years ago. Since then, I can't tell you the amount of times, which is so weird for me, where I'll be at like a party or something, and somehow it comes up in one way or another. Either for whatever reason it comes up, someone says, "Oh, what do your parents do?" or something, or someone else brings it up to the person. Even 20-year-olds, which is so odd. I'll literally, like, it never used to happen, but like a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old at a party will be like, "Your mom is Belinda Carlisle?" They'll be like, "I love Circle in the Sand," or whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, it's so, like, I mean, I think it's great. I'm grateful for it, but it's a very cool experience that I'm definitely grateful for.
But I mean, there's so many of those iconic moments from the 80s and 90s, and obviously that means so much to a certain generation, but there's shows like RuPaul's Drag Race where they perform some of these older tracks, or Black Mirror and It's a Sin where they had Belinda's music on there, that a new generation gets to like, wait, I want to go back and listen to this artist because this song is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, It's a Sin, that was totally, I was just watching it by chance. I mean, I was watching it because I wanted to watch it. And at the end of the episode, Heaven is a Place on Earth comes on. I'm like, what? Like, and that happens a lot. I mean, I would say that happens. There have been a few other examples too of, like, I mean, like Ryan Murphy has her music on a lot in, in different stuff. I remember I was watching American Horror Story 1984, like a year or two ago. And Leslie Jordan, he all of a sudden he just goes, I forgot the context, but something like, "Oh my God, they almost killed Belinda Carlisle." And I actually messaged him on Instagram, and I said, "Thank you for name dropping my mom on Instagram on American Horror Story." And he and I actually became friendly before he passed away. But just weird stuff like that happens a lot, and it's great. I mean, weird in a great way. I think it's obviously super awesome, but yeah, and now for whatever reason, it does seem like, because of, I think, just the mainstream renaissance that's happened with the Rock Hall and the documentary and the Diane Warren stuff. But even within the gay community or the LGBTQ community, I feel like there's been kind of a renaissance when it comes to her relevance and her music and all that.
Susanna Hoffs from the Bengals was just in Chicago recently, and people were asking her about like who she partied with, and she brought up a bunch of fun stories about like your mom, Donna Delore, who ended up going singing backup with Madonna, also had like fun stories. Like when you're across like YouTube, do you come across these things? Does she share them with you, or is it just like when you meet her celebrity friends, do they like, "Oh my goodness, we once did X, Y, and Z," or remember X, Y, and Z?
I remember I was sitting next to my mom at the premiere of the Sundance, of the premiere of the Go-Go's documentary at Sundance. And we're sitting there, and there's a part of the documentary where they talk about when the Go-Go's performed at Rock in Rio in 1985. And there's a part of the documentary where my mom says, she goes, "I literally didn't sleep for a week." And she looks over at me and she says, "We would have had a really good time when we," and I was like, yeah, probably. I mean, of course, not as mother and son, but I mean, no, for sure. I mean, I love hearing stories like that. It'd be different if she weren't sober now. I mean, she's been sober 18 years. So, if she was still doing what she used to do at age 65, that probably would be a little problematic. But now the fact that these are old legendary stories, I mean, I think it's epic. I love it. I think I love hearing them. I think I have this coffee table book that Gina Shock from the Go-Go's put together, which is all these Polaroids of like the Go-Go's back in the early 80s. I mean, some of these pictures where you go like, "Oh my God," like, and then the stories about all their exploits and crazy party stories. I mean, it's great. I love it. I mean, I have my own crazy party story, nothing like that, but those kind of stories, they're great. They're funny, and they're great to hear,
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a fun conversation. Hopefully we'll see you in Chicago sometime soon.
I'm hopefully next month, hopefully market days. I'm going to try to make it work. So I'm excited.
Awesome. We'll follow him at James Duke Mason on Instagram, and then Belinda's show at Northshore Center for the Performing Arts in Skokie this Sunday, July 9th, Ticketmaster.com for that. And we'll see you soon. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.